It was a Thursday, March 2nd, 2023. The day began like so many others, with the gentle glow of morning sunlight slipping through the curtains, casting soft patterns on the walls. Outside, the world was just waking up, the air still cool and fresh, filled with the promise of a new day. In Beaufort County, South Carolina, a place where the pace of life is slow and the community feels close-knit, the streets were quiet, lined with old oaks and the familiar faces of neighbors starting their routines. The sun rose over Spanish moss-draped trees and silent streets as Jillian Angner, just 24 years old, prepared for another ordinary day. She buckled her 6-year-old son Aiden into the back seat, their morning ritual unfolding with practiced ease as she drove him to school. Jillian was more than just a mother. She was a pharmacy technician, a single parent, and the steady center of Aiden's world. Every morning she juggled work and motherhood, determined to build a safe, loving life for them both, even when it meant early mornings and long days. Inside their Jeep, the air was filled with the gentle hum of conversation, Aiden's questions about the day ahead, Jillian's reassuring answers, and the comforting predictability of their routine. These small moments, often overlooked, were the foundation of their bond. Jillian kept her eyes on the road, her mind already running through the day's tasks, while Aiden gazed out the window, lost in the passing scenery, completely trusting in his mother's care. The world outside seemed peaceful, almost suspended in time. It was an ordinary day, one that felt safe, predictable, and unremarkable. But sometimes, the most routine mornings can hold the greatest surprises. Without warning, dark clouds began to gather on the horizon, casting long shadows over the quiet streets. The peaceful drive was about to be shattered by a darkness neither Jillian nor Aiden could have anticipated. In a matter of seconds, everything would change. The familiar comfort of their morning routine would be replaced by fear and uncertainty, as their world was turned upside down. The quiet road, so ordinary and unassuming, hid a secret, a danger lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The calm of the morning was nothing more than a fragile illusion, a thin veil that could be torn away in an instant. Beneath the surface, tension simmered, unnoticed by those going about their day. For Jillian and Aiden, this Thursday would become a dividing line in their lives, the day when everything they knew was suddenly, irrevocably changed. The love between mother and son would be tested in ways they could never have imagined. The ordinary can become extraordinary in a heartbeat. In the blink of an eye, the familiar can give way to the unknown, and the safe can become dangerous. For Jillian and Aiden, that heartbeat, the moment that would change everything, was now just moments away. The anticipation hung in the air, heavy and electric. A terrible storm was about to break, and nothing would ever be the same again. It was a morning like any other in Beaufort County, South Carolina. The sun filtered softly through the palm trees, casting dappled shadows on the quiet residential street. Jillian drove her red Jeep, her son Aiden in the back seat, both unaware that their lives were about to change forever. Suddenly, a pickup truck pulled up alongside Jillian's Jeep, its presence menacing and unexpected. Without warning, gunshots rang out, sharp, violent, and deafening, shattering the peaceful morning. The windows exploded in a spray of glass, chaos erupting in an instant. The sound of gunfire echoed down the street, a terrifying interruption to the calm. Jillian was struck in the neck, the bullet finding its mark with devastating precision. She lost consciousness almost immediately, her body slumping forward, blood staining her shirt as her hand slipped from the wheel. With no one to control the vehicle, Jillian's foot pressed down on the accelerator. The Jeep lurched forward, veering off the road and careening into a palm tree with a sickening crash. The impact shook the car, sending shockwaves through the cabin. In the aftermath, a heavy silence settled over the scene, broken only by the ragged breathing and terrified cries of young Aiden. The world seemed to stand still, the chaos replaced by a chilling quiet. Trapped in the back seat, surrounded by shards of broken glass and the wreckage of the crash, Aiden's mind raced. He was just a child, but in that moment, his instincts screamed at him to survive, to find a way out. Through the haze of fear and confusion, he spotted a way out, a window, shattered but open to the world beyond the wreck. Summoning a courage far beyond his years, Aiden carefully climbed through the jagged glass, ignoring the pain and fear, desperate to escape the wreckage and the nightmare unfolding around him. He ran, his small legs carrying him as fast as they could, not daring to look back. The only thing on his mind was safety. He sprinted toward the marsh, heart pounding, desperate to get away from the horror he'd just witnessed. Alone now, terrified and trembling, Aiden looked back at the road. His mother was gravely wounded, the car wrecked, and the world he knew had been shattered in an instant. The sense of safety he once felt was gone, replaced by overwhelming fear and confusion. The attack itself had lasted only seconds, but for Aiden, the ordeal was just beginning. Each moment stretched out, heavy with uncertainty and dread, as he tried to make sense of what had happened. In that moment, Aiden was forced to grow up. He was a child, but now he had to act with a maturity and resolve far beyond his years, his innocence lost in the chaos. What began as a peaceful drive through a quiet neighborhood had turned into a desperate flight for survival. The tranquility of the morning shattered forever. The quiet morning was gone, replaced by sirens, flashing lights, and the grim reality of violence. Emergency vehicles arrived, but for Aiden, the sense of safety would not return so easily. All that remained was fear, uncertainty, and the haunting memory of what he had witnessed. The road ahead was unclear, and the future felt impossibly uncertain. And so, on that quiet road now forever changed, Aiden was left to face the aftermath alone, his childhood innocence lost to a moment of unimaginable violence. The attacker was John Patrick Shea, a man whose name would soon become synonymous with fear and obsession in Jillian's life. He was not a stranger lurking in the dark, but someone she had once trusted, someone she had let into her world, if only for a brief moment. Jillian had dated Shea briefly, but their connection quickly soured. What should have been a simple, mutual parting became the catalyst for a nightmare she could never have anticipated. For Shea, the breakup was not an ending. It was the beginning of an all-consuming obsession. He scrolled endlessly through her social media, replayed old messages, and convinced himself that Jillian belonged to him. He began stalking Jillian, lurking outside her home at all hours, breaking in when she wasn't there, and leaving subtle signs of his presence. Every creak in the night, every shadow outside her window, became a reminder that she was never truly alone. Desperate to reclaim her sense of safety, Jillian changed her locks, installed security cameras, and looked over her shoulder wherever she went. But Shea's fixation only grew stronger, feeding off her fear. He watched her from the shadows, learning her daily routine, memorizing her schedule, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Every detail was calculated, every move rehearsed with chilling precision. The night before the attack, Shea parked his car at a bar across town, carefully crafting a false alibi that he hoped would mislead investigators and buy him precious time. He then convinced Wyatt Norton, an acquaintance, to drive him under false pretenses, spinning a web of lies about his intentions and manipulating those around him to serve his deadly plan. This was not a crime of passion, nor a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a cold, calculated execution, planned down to the smallest detail, leaving nothing to chance. Shea armed himself, waited in the darkness, and launched his attack with ruthless determination, showing no hesitation or remorse. He was not suffering from a psychotic break or a moment of madness. He was a predator, stalking his prey with methodical intent. Every action he took was deliberate, every step part of a larger, sinister plan. His intent was unmistakable, his resolve unshakable. In Shea's mind, if he couldn't have Jillian, then no one could. His possessiveness turned deadly, and his anger became a weapon. The ambush was the final, horrifying act of a deadly obsession, a moment that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. Shea's plan was cold, methodical, and executed with a chilling lack of empathy. He left nothing to chance, ensuring every detail was accounted for. He was a stalker, not a victim, a man who chose to become the architect of terror in Jillian's life, and in the end, his actions would shatter lives, leaving a trail of pain and fear that would linger long after the night of the attack. As Aiden fled, another car approached. The driver was Jillian's mother. She'd heard the gunshots and rushed outside, only to see the wrecked Jeep. Her heart sank as she spotted Aiden emerging from the marsh, his face pale with shock. He walked to her and said, "Mommy is dead, can I come live with you?" She gathered him in her arms, shielding him from the horror. Inside the Jeep, she saw her daughter, gravely wounded. The peaceful morning was gone, replaced by devastation. Emergency crews arrived, fighting to save Jillian's life. For Aiden, his grandmother's embrace was his first moment of safety. For the family, a nightmare had just begun. Jillian survived the attack, but only barely. She was placed on life support, unable to move, speak, or breathe on her own. For 5 months, her family kept vigil, hoping for a miracle that never came. Machines kept her alive, but the damage was irreversible. On August 5, 2023, Gillian passed away. Her family lost her twice, first on that road, then in the hospital. The charge against Shay became murder. The long wait for hope ended. The long road to justice began. Grief replaced hope, but the fight for justice continued. While Gillian's family grieved, police launched an intensive investigation. Witnesses saw a suspicious truck fleeing. Detectives traced its route through surveillance footage. The evidence led straight to John Patrick Shay. He was arrested a week later, caught packing to flee. A search of his apartment revealed a disturbing shrine defaced photos of Gillian, tarot cards, a voodoo doll, and occult books. Police found a list of women he'd contacted since 2008 and a letter from his mother warning of his violent behavior. The evidence was overwhelming. This was not random violence. It was the climax of a long, calculated obsession. Shay's attempt at an alibi failed. The man who terrorized Gillian was finally in custody. The truth of his obsession was laid bare. Shay's trial began in June 2025. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence, surveillance footage, witness testimony, and the disturbing items from Shay's apartment. The defense tried to cast doubt, even suggesting Gillian's ex-husband was responsible. But on the second day, Shay changed his plea, admitting guilt to murder, attempted murder, and other charges. The courtroom was stunned. Shay claimed mental illness and substance abuse, begging for mercy. He tried to implicate his getaway driver, but the evidence was clear. The fight for justice ended abruptly. Shay's confession was a final act of manipulation. The family braced for sentencing. The judge saw through Shay's excuses. This was not madness but malice, meticulous planning, stalking, and revenge. Shay's alibi, the manipulated driver, and the shrine all pointed to intent. The judge sentenced Shay to life in prison, no parole. Justice was delivered, swift, absolute, and final. Shay would never walk free again. For Gillian's family, it was a somber victory. The trauma remained, but her killer was held accountable. The legal saga was over. Gillian's life was honored in the court's verdict. The trial's end was just the beginning for Gillian's family, especially Aiden. The trauma lingered. Aiden couldn't even drive past the scene for months. Everyday sounds like a smoke alarm triggered panic. He lost not just his mother, but his sense of safety. But in the darkness there was light, the fierce love of his family. His grandmother became his guardian, honoring his plea for safety. Surrounded by love, Aiden began to heal. Gillian's story is a tragedy, but also one of courage and resilience. Their love endures, the one thing her killer could never destroy. It's a call to protect and believe victims before it's too late.